Migration management is today more than ever essential for the cohesion and growth of the European Union. Europe, as you know, is facing an acute geopolitical crisis in its periphery and borders. Migration management is a challenge impacting also global stability. The European Union faces today the consequences of instability in its immediate neighborhood. Events like the so-called Arab Spring, here I must tell you that I had some objections during the foreign ministers' discussions, but why so easily we gave this name. Anyway, you see what happened afterwards. The present conflict in Syria and the crisis in Libya challenge our migration policy and heighten calls for adequate responses from the European Union. It's good to know that in the year 2014, around 600,000 persons sought asylum in the European Union, almost twice as many as in the year 2012, and one-third more than in 2013. At the same time, tens of thousands attempted to cross the Mediterranean. Over 170,000 migrants were rescued by the Italian sea operation Mare Nostrum, and more than 3,000 lost their lives in 2014. We are confronted with continuing loss of lives of persons attempting to cross the Mediterranean this year. Moreover, the European Union is facing demographic challenges, shrinking populations in many member states, growing dependent ratio, and severe labor shortages, especially in certain sectors. One of the solutions to this challenge is inward migration. Simultaneously, the support of the EU citizens for our policies is shrinking. In a recent survey, 57% of European citizens expressed negative views concerning migration of third country nationals to the European Union. This phenomenon is likely to have been reinforced in the aftermath of the Paris attacks and the rising polarization within our societies, including along ethnic and religious lines. Populist movements exploit the situation by passing messages which build around a dual narrative of exclusion. First, we need to exclude migrants from our economy to start growing again. Second, they say, our physical safety depends on the exclusion of migrants from our societies. I can tell you that this Commission is determined to stop the eroding and dangerous effects of populism in Europe. And we know that it is not an easy political task to cope with. And the only way to negate the narrative of populism is to be effective, to provide European solutions that will safeguard at the same time security and fundamental rights. A disproportionate responsibility is being placed on the shoulders of some of the world's least developed countries. Third, I would point to the increasing phenomenon of facilitated irregular migration. This mixed migration flow is being facilitated by the growing business of people smugglers. Dealing with the consequences of this phenomenon is placing an increasing strain on our resources and on the political openness of our governments and, of course, of public opinion. To respond to these latter two challenges, the number of refugees that can be resettled in EU countries should be increased. The European Union and Member States must work together to establish a truly European program for the resettlement of refugees. At the same time, the European Union will continue to support ongoing efforts financially, always in accordance with certain common geographic priorities and vulnerability criteria. While the use of resettlement is the primary legal avenue for seeking protection in the European Union, I support Member States who also use other forms of legal access to protection. These forms include asylum of humanitarian permits, broader family reunification, or work-related migration possibilities for persons in need of protection. Fourth, another reality is that many of the countries that are hosting refugees are not providing them with adequate protection, neither with a prospect of social integration. It is thus our objective to help the states which are sheltering refugees directly through financial assistance. The European Union, including Member States, is the largest donor of humanitarian assistance to the Syrian relief effort. But helping the states should not only take the form of giving them money. We also need to build the capacities to provide protection themselves in line with international standards. The European Union has been using so-called regional protection and development programs to this end. We intend to intensify these efforts in the future. Finally, we should make more use of the international institutional framework to master crisis together. The European Union is already the second largest donor to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, following the United States. I'm confident that the European Union and the United States can join forces more clearly in fora like the United Nations Refugees Agency to better coordinate our protection policies. The international institutional framework should be continuously adapted to these challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, addressing migration in Europe is by no means an easy undertaking. Nevertheless, the historic evolution of the European Union was never about easy choices. We have learned to grow and prosper through compromise and difficult choices. Managing migration is all about managing the human capital of Europe. Human capital that will ensure that Europe will remain an open society, forward-looking, being at the same time an innovative and competitive economy. At the same time, we have to make sure that Europe will stop at its borders crime and terrorism. I am positive that this Commission will deliver results and will make the difference. Europe will not suffocate because of fear. Fear for the different, fear for the preservation of fundamental rights we hold dear in the Western world. This Commission is indeed Europe's last chance to prove that there is future in the European project. Thank you very much for your attention.